I've decided my 2021 will start on February the 1st. January is a free trial month. Hello and welcome to the first episode of 2021. Woo, 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 woo. Welcome to the Toya Talks Podcast. My name, if you don't know already, let me introduce myself. My name is Toya Washington. I have created the Toya Talks platform and of course the Toya Talks podcast, where we teach, guide and advise Black women how to navigate the world of work successfully and therefore lighten the path of their success. And that's what we do here. We keep it all the way 100. We have created a safe space for us to share and educate each other. And I use my experiences as a opportunity to teach and learn and grow. And I share that here on the Toya Talks podcast each and every Tuesday. I'm in a really weird mood, really weird mood today, and I don't know whether it's because my menstrual cycle is coming on or because we have entered another lockdown that seems to have no end. Me, I don't know. But we are not going to allow that to disturb what we have come here to do. Guys, I don't have behavior. Honestly, if you go on my social media, on my Instagram page, seriously, I was giving everybody the smoke because I had enough. I had enough of people's bullshit. I've just had enough of it. However, enough of that. We can revisit that a little later. Welcome to the first episode of 2021. We're entitling this episode House of Cards because, oh my God, where do we start? Okay, so it's been really difficult over the last few months, and I think all of us can share in some of the stresses and difficulties that we've had to go through. 2020 is in the bin. It's in the bin because, you know, when they say, how was your year last year? Well, it was in lockdown. We all had the same year, or similar, not the same, similar. And I entered 2021 just optimistic, right? I've started my vision board. I'm going to conclude my updating of my vision board today. And I'm just going to allow God to manifest himself in the way he does and shows up for me each and every day of my life, every minute of the day. But I didn't want to have, I didn't want to go into 2021 with huge expectation. I can have certain goals for myself, but having expectation for the way the year will pan out has taught me that actually it will go the way it's supposed to. For those of you who don't know, I have my Snapchat, and I don't know why I can't get my words out. I think it's just because there's just so much to tell you guys. I just don't even know where to start. So on Snapchat, so my Snapchat handle is Toya Washington, all one word. I'm always on there. Like if anything, if I'm not on any socials, I'm likely to be on Snap, and that's just because that's where Toya Talks was born. And I've been sharing like my day to day, and work has been crazy. Work has mentally challenged me in ways that I have never experienced before. I am a contractor, for those people who don't know, and I'm literally in the most difficult contract of my entire career. I've never been on a contract like this before. And to give you a bit of background, sometimes I finish work at 11 p.m. Sometimes I can log off at 11 and log back on at 1 a.m. It's just one of those contracts that's all consuming. And when I took this contract, I knew it would be difficult, but I didn't know it would be like this. And it's now that I've been on this assignment for a few months now, it's a revolving door. You've got grown men, on Zoom calls and other remote calls, and they're just breaking down crying. You've got grown women like myself who are just breaking down crying because it is a lot. And I've always drawn the line at if a role interferes with my mood to the point where it affects my home life and my relationship, I'm tapping out. And that's the decision I've kind of come to. But in coming to that decision, it was really important that I speak to you guys about burnout because it's something that I haven't really spoken about before. And I think it's because I've never really experienced it, not to the level, at least, that I've experienced it over the last few months. Knowing me as a person, if you know me, you know kind of what I'm like. And I always say that my career is my world. Like, I love my career. I am in love with my career because there was a point where I was walking so far into the wilderness, I didn't even know my purpose. And I've been through so much in my life, and I definitely attribute my success to my career, and I attribute my ability to be able to stay level-headed down to my career. My career saved my life. I say this all the time. And maybe in another episode I can elaborate a bit more about what I mean by that. But I've become the subject matter expert in what I do. For those of you who don't know, I am a commercial contract consultant, or a contract consultant. And I never thought that I would get to a point with a contract where I would be sitting here saying this, that the burnout has been real, that the only way that this contract is sustainable is because of remote working. If I had to get on the train every day and go to work, I would have left within a week, because it's not sustainable. And there lies the segue into setting boundaries whilst remote working. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later on, because I've seen some crazy shit, right? And a lot of it comes from entitlement of racist white people that I have encountered. The misogynoir has been potent. And also as well, the macroaggressions have been very aggressive and in fact very violent, if you want me to be completely honest. But again, we're gonna touch on each of those points. But when this role started to interfere with my moods, it started to affect my home life. Obviously, me and my partner are both remote working, but it was very clear that this wasn't sustainable for my mental health. And there was just this one day that I remember, and I was speaking to one of my colleagues who happens to be a very good friend of mine. I knew her before joining the assignment, or the organisation that I do the assignment in. And we were just talking, and she asked me a question, and I just broke down in tears. And she is not used to seeing me cry, because I don't even think she's seen me cry before. And she got really emotional, and she says, "Toya, this is just too much." I said, "It is. It is." And she made the decision to leave. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to keep going." I'd had interviews and stuff like that a few weeks prior, but for me, I guess I was really hard on myself, because I didn't want to feel like I was giving up, because I always see my assignments to the end. But I realised that it's not about me looking like I can't complete something, because clearly I can. All my assignments I've completed, but not to the detriment of my mental health. And as soon as an assignment starts to affect your mental health, you have to start asking yourself questions like, is it worth it? And what is it about this role that is affecting your mental health? Can it change? And it's just the nature of the assignment that I'm on. It's just not going to change. In fact, it's getting worse. And it doesn't help that I'm working with very incompetent people that directly affect my role. So if you imagine, I've got stakeholders that work in finance, I've got stakeholders that work in different parts of the business, and as part of contract managing my contracts, I have to make sure that my suppliers are paid on time. Finance don't know their head from their feet, and they make my role really difficult, because when the invoices are not paid, guess who's on the brunt of it at the end of a phone call with a supplier? It's me. And the work is never ending. You could literally work from 9 to 11, and the only break you'll take are the toilet breaks. And I think even today was confirmation that it was time to go, because I actually missed a meeting. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm really, really organised, down to the point of my filing structure. I'm just so organised, because I take my job really, really seriously. I genuinely love what I do. I genuinely love kind of doing this as a career. So I take pride in being really organised. And missing that meeting, everyone I know was surprised. And actually, I sent an email to all the attendees of the meeting, apologising. And I just said, I was on a call. Unfortunately, I couldn't join. I know that's not all the way true, because I came off that call in good time enough to join that meeting, but I just didn't remember that meeting was happening. And a lot of it is down to tiredness, and it's down to the stress of the role, and being forgetful isn't something that I am. But all these things have come into play in this particular role. And I've gotten to a point where I understand that sleep deprivation and suffering in general is not a prerequisite to a role, or it's not a requirement for you to undergo to feel like you're doing a good job. But I feel like definitely being in a remote working state, which I love remote working, but I think for other people, they see it as they're entitled to your time over and beyond your contracted hours. And don't get it twisted, I don't mind working like an hour later and stuff like that, but working till 11 p.m, Then by the time I get to bed, it's probably 2 a.m., only to wake up at 6. And that has been my life for the last few months. My skin, I'm getting these type of spots that you can't burst because they're stress spots. My hairline, that was literally like making an appearance, has now just stood still, waiting for me to make a decision about this role. And I've gotten to that point. So I've made the decision to leave, and God has blessed me so kindly that I have another contract to go on to. But before I had that option, I had to make the decision for me. Now, I always say to everybody, it's important to be a subject matter expert because that gives you leverage. And in a market and in an industry, and looking at the commercial space as it is today, for every one job, there's like 10 people, whereas before it'd probably be 2 or 3. So competition is high. The pandemic has put a massive strain on businesses and a massive strain on the commercial space. So what we're seeing is the commercial space reacting to the pandemic. Not reacting very well. The unemployment rate is what the news haven't really covered, but I know that it's skyrocketed off the roof because organizations cannot sustain a pandemic. That, you know, you've got businesses that have been closed since March, or maybe open for 2 weeks and back in a tiered situation or in lockdown. And I worry about freelancers in different industries like the creative space. I worry about people in hospitality who I know have lost their jobs. And the difficulty is a lot of people have dedicated their career to that sector of where they work. And the problem is now is to kind of do a skill change to a new role. It's difficult now because how does somebody who maybe has been in the hospitality industry for over 10 years and that's all they've known, now try and retrain to get into maybe an admin role? It's difficult, you know? So I've been very conscious of the fact that the workspace and the commercial space is changing. So over Christmas, I can't even say over Christmas. I'd say just before Christmas, I'd made the decision. And you know, one thing is, once you've made a decision, a workplace will further compound your decision. I really feel like once you have made the decision to leave, you'll just start seeing things in HD where you work. So for instance, the bullshit was getting worse at work, and it was just reaffirming why I had to leave. But the worst part is having to tell my boss. I always hate that. It's like breaking up with a boyfriend. It's difficult because also you don't know how it's going to go. If you've got a boss that's a bit of a dickhead, I promise you they'll make your life hell. They'll make your life a living hell up until the end of your last day. If you've got an emotional boss, they will emotionally trip you into making you think that this is not the right decision for you, and that actually you've made this decision based on emotion, and actually, you know what, we'll give you a few days to think about it, which sometimes I do find quite insulting, because if I've taken the time to pick up the phone and call you, you've got to trust that I've like taken that time to process whether this is the right decision for me. And also, I'm a grown-ass woman. If I tell you I'm done, don't tell me you give me a few days. I don't give a fuck, because the decision isn't going to change. But the worst part is when the manager is hoping that the few days will make you change your mind, and then maybe they become a bit more present because they know you're going to leave in the hope that you change your mind. And that's what kind of happened with me. So I was umming and ahhing. So Christmas Eve, I sent an email to my boss, and I said to her, whenever you get this, whenever you become available, irrespective of whether it lands on Christmas Day, please call me on my personal mobile. I really need to have a quick chat with you. And my boss called me, I think it was Boxing Day. I believe it was Boxing Day. I might be getting my days a bit mixed up, but I do think it was Boxing Day. And she says, Toya, I saw your email. You know, she rang me. She says, I saw your emails. Everything okay? I says, you know, Deborah, I really like you as a person. You manage me really, really well by just kind of letting me just do my job. You know, you don't micromanage me at all. You trust my commercial decisions. You trust my contractual decisions. I think that you've given me the forum to kind of really be a commercial contract consultant and a lead as well. Like, I'm a lead. So I really feel like you've given me the space to really flourish. But in order for me to be comfortable in this role, I have to also be okay at not working at my optimal level, because you can't work in your optimal level on this role. This type of role, this type of contract requires you to be okay with doing a half job, and that doesn't really work for me. And also, the hours are not conducive for my life. I don't have a life, and I definitely feel like it's tampering with my mental health and my ability to just be able to switch off and relax, because I'm always on call. Nothing kind of moves without me, but more so it's the amount of work that one has to do. We don't have a lot of people in our team, and even though, you know, the leads are quite senior, it is not conducive that one would work until midnight to wake up at 6 and then start work at 6:30 or 7. I says, I can't live like that. I need a work-life balance. And whilst I get that we're remote working, the reality is I can't be remote from finding peace. I need to be, I need to have that balance. And she was so sweet. She was really, really nice. She said that she got it. She said she understood. And I said to her, you know, in terms of like notice periods and stuff in the contract, I said, in my contract, I've got 3 months. And I know that's because I'm a lead, but I'm not going to work for 3 months because, like I said, this is really interfering with my mental health and it's affecting me, and therefore working 3 months is further going to exacerbate that. So I says, I'm willing to give you 2. So she was like, okay, well, I'm going to speak to human resources. I says, you can speak to human resources, I'm fine with you doing that, but I'm giving 2. So she says, okay, you know, I'm going to catch up with you on the 4th of January. You know, I understand completely. This role is a revolving door. She goes, this whole assignment is a revolving door. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the project, we just can't retain good staff because of the reason you say. She's like, people on your level are used to doing an amazing job, but this contract doesn't allow you to do an amazing job. You have to be okay with doing subpar work. And she goes, Toya, I know you're not like that, and that's probably why you work later to make sure it's done properly. And I said, exactly. So after that conversation, on the 4th of January, so I was working through Christmas. I think I had like Christmas Day off, Boxing Day I was still checking my emails, I was responding and stuff, so I really had just a day. And on the 4th, my boss didn't say anything. She said she put some time in my diary, didn't hear nothing from her. So I said to myself, if I don't hear from her by Wednesday, I'm going to call her. And there was like a team meeting in between. So she could, and I spoke during the team meeting. So she knows I was in work. And it was just really uncomfortable because I felt like I've had this conversation with you. I'm going to put it in writing. You said you're going to speak to human resources. You were supposed to come back to me and you just haven't. And I think that because we're remote working, I'm not feeling kind of, you know, the intensity of maybe any negativity, but I did definitely feel ignored. But in wanting to give her the benefit of the doubt, I'd give her till Wednesday. I think for me, where I was a little disappointed is my boss is the type of person, she buries her head in the sand because she thinks that it will just go away. And what she fails to realize is her burying her head in the sand can be interpreted as 1, she doesn't care, 2, she's being difficult, or 3, she's trying to create an uncomfortable work environment. Now, I've been in this industry for several years now. Like, I think it's coming up to like almost 9 years I've been in this industry. I've worked in so many amazing places. I've worked for some amazing companies, and I've had some great managers, and I've had some horrible managers. And one thing I've learned is to give people the benefit of the doubt. If you give people enough license, you will see how they move. So on the Wednesday now, I said to myself, okay, after work I'm going to contact her. And she actually called me via Teams. And she said, you know, Toya, I would hope that you would have changed your mind. And I says, no, I'm not going to change my mind because I've made the decision. For me to contact you during Christmas will tell you how serious I am about it. I says, but you know something that I'm going to do? I says, I respect what we do here, and I respect the fact that you are really short-staffed. You're going through it. So I'm going to work to the end of the month. That gives you more than enough time to recruit new staff. It gives me an opportunity to do a great handover, and anything that can't be captured within that 1 month, so far as you continue to pay me, I'll just work things to the end, but let's just work as though my last day is on the 18th. The extra 2 weeks will be to try and finish stuff off. Anything that can't get finished off, I don't mind working evenings in my own time as long as you pay me for it. And so those things are closed off so that there's like a really nice transition. And she didn't know what to say. Her mouth dropped and she says, I'm really, really grateful for that. You know, I could have met her with the same energy. I could have buried my head in the sand. I could have been difficult. I could have responded to her with the same negativity that I was feeling. But I felt like I've already made my decision. You understand? I've already got the upper hand. I've got enough work integrity that I'm going to leave things in a really, really good way. I'm not going to leave things messed up. I'm going to leave things in the way that somebody can pick it up. And whilst they'll find the environment very difficult to work in, they'll find my contracts easy to work with. The difficulty now is telling my suppliers, who have grown very attached to me in how I work. They know that I can have those difficult conversations, but I'm very honest, I'm very thorough, I'm commercially very savvy and contractually very savvy. I keep them on their toes. And I've made sure that, you know, that in terms of working with me, that they know what they're going to get from me. Do you understand? And that's what I'm saying about work integrity and being principled in what I do. But it's difficult to maintain that standard when you're working in an organisation just such as this one. Deborah's behaviour, or lack thereof, was borderline passive-aggressive. It was uncomfortable, you know, because it was like, okay, do I send her an email? Do I call her back? You know, I'm not wanting to piss her off. At the same time, I still have to work. Do you understand? It was just so weird. And I've always said, like, managers, there are some managers that take the workplace like their father's business. Like, seriously. They really take a resignation personally to the point whereby they'll make your final couple of weeks, days, months so unbearable. Now, don't get it twisted, right? If you want to talk contractually, my boss could have said, right, no, sorry, we've got a contract with you in your business, Toya. You've got to work for 3 months. But I had to leverage the fact that a lot of people have rolled off this contract because of mental health reasons, so have never worked their full notice. And actually, even if me not working my full notice, they've got options. They can, you know, so basically, in terms of like my notice period, even though there's a notice period in the contract, the parties can mutually agree to kind of put that contractual notice to one side and agree a date and time that works for both parties. So there's times when my notice period has been 4 weeks and they've wanted me to give more in other places. Here, I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. But what my boss knows she's going to get from me is the truth. So I'm sitting there telling her, actually, it's 2 weeks. Actually, I'll do a month. And I'm also saying to her, I'll do you a complete handover. Because there's nothing contractually that binds me to give a handover, you know. It's just good work etiquette. That's all it is. So it's in my boss' best interest to keep me on side. It's in my boss' best interest because at the end of the day, every employer, every organisation has a duty of care to their staff. Whether you're a contractor, whether you're on a fixed term contract, whether you're agency staff or a perm staff, they owe you a duty of care. And as soon as you start talking about mental health, and as soon as you feel as though your mental health is being compromised, they can't force you to continue to compromise your mental health because of a notice period. Don't work like that. And she knows it and I know it. You're talking to a commercial contract manager here. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I was glad that her and I can mutually agree. And, you know, I guess what that means is, for me personally, that I get to do a very robust handover. But I think the biggest lesson I learned there is that loyalty that I owe the only loyalty that is owed is the loyalty I owe to myself. A lot of us want to leave somewhere, but we get on with everybody. We have got such a great relationship. This is my team. But ultimately, sometimes progression requires you to pick up your bag and go. Sometimes progression means standing still isn't going to work. I've stayed in organisations because I like the people. But liking the people is not going to take me to the next stage of my career. Loyalty. You know, people talk about loyalty all the time in terms of organisations, but where is the loyalty when you've been working somewhere for X amount of years, blood, sweat and tears, and when they're ready to make people redundant, you're on the list, mate. There's no loyalty in workplaces. The pandemic should have taught you all that the only loyalty you owe is to yourself and to your career. And I keep telling people, if you deal with your career like it's a project, you will be loyal to that project because you know there's an end game, there's results that you're trying to achieve. But as soon as you start displacing your loyalty, you're going to find yourself in very, very precarious situations where, number one, that loyalty is not mutually received or reciprocated. Number two, there is no progression in standing still. And I believe in loyalty to a point, right? So, some people be like, well, if you're working for a competitor, it's being disloyal. No, it's not. It's being smart is what it is. It's when you feel like you have to start justifying your career choices that loyalty starts being thrown in there like a weapon. And I think that we need to get good with understanding that organizations are there either to make a profit or to keep a business running because it serves a purpose. And you need to understand that there are some organizations which show loyalty in different ways, but giving somebody a bonus is not showing loyalty. Yeah? Not putting somebody on redundancy doesn't show loyalty. No, it doesn't. Keeping people in the same position, even though you know they want to progress, is showing a complicit ability from organizations to stunt people's growth. And I think we need to understand that. Because once you put aside what you want to achieve, and you're not achieving those things because the organization is not facilitating that for you, and every time you want to leave, they bribe you to stay. They give you more money, give you more annual leave and what they call benefits. But your frustration as to the reason why you want to leave still remains there. And even if you love the people that you work with, but you know that this role can only go so far, but you put how you feel to one side, you'll become quite frustrated. You'll become quite resentful. And then one day, something might tip you and you'll just fucking lose it. And that's why I call it House of Cards, because if you continue to not put yourself first, not put your career first, one day it's all going to come falling down. It will do. And I never want to ever get to that point in my career. I always say you have to know when to bow out. You have to know when that is. For me, I know what my limit is. I know when it's time to go. You know when you get that knot inside of your stomach, that sickly knot in your stomach that fills you with dread at the pure thought on a Sunday at 6 p.m. about work on a Monday, then you know it's time to go. I'm not here to suffer, I'm not doing suffer. My ancestors suffered for me to be able to sit here. I can't continue suffering because the white man or the racist white constructs need me to sit in a place to fill a role, a bum in a seat, a employment number badge. No. That's not going to be me. No. And my thing is, anywhere I go to, it has to be an elevation of some kind. So for me, I understand that if I continue to stay here, I won't be able to achieve certain things that are on my vision board, like the further education that I'm doing. Yeah, you heard me. Nigerians, we collect education like a shopping list. Yeah, further education. I've got Toya Talks as a platform that I need to take to the next level. I won't be able to do those things if I'm working till 11 o'clock every night, sometimes 2 a.m., waking up at 6. That's not going to work. I can't facilitate the things I need to do in my personal life. And this is why I say my career isn't my whole life. It's an important part of my whole life, but there are branches to that career. So my career is what enables me to be able to do other things. And actually, a lot of my content is from my career. All of my content is from my career. So my career means a lot to me, but there are other things that need to get done as well. I need to look back in 2021 and know that I've achieved everything, if possible, on my vision board. And actually, when we're talking about a work-life balance, I just need to be able to breathe. I need my bladder to take a break because it's always full all the time because I'm in one meeting after another. I can't fucking catch a break. And that's when I realised it's time to go. I got to go. One of the reasons why it took me a while to get to the decision to leave is because I'm a Libran, innit? We like balance. We like to be zen. And we're always looking for the balance, yeah? And I do not like being the new person at work. I really, really don't like it. I don't like... Sorry, that's my work laptop. I really don't like, starting again. I find it really difficult. you're asking all the questions that, and you don't want to ask too many questions because you don't want people to feel fed up with answering your questions, starting again, knowing where things are, who's in IT, how to do this, and da 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 da. I really don't like that. But that's also one of the reasons why I did contracting, because it would force me out of my comfort zone to start again. You get to the end of an assignment, it doesn't get extended, you move on to the next one. So every 3 to 6 months, you're in a new contract. And for me, I wanted to build up that resilience. When people say we need someone who's going to hit the ground running, there's no one that knows how to hit the ground running more than, I'd say, contractors, because that's all we do. We're used to firefighting. We're used to kind of getting into a role, and we don't have the luxury of an induction. We literally are going from the day one. But I've gotten to that stage in my life where actually I love contracting. I love the money it generates. I love the industry that I'm in. But starting a new contract all the time as I'm getting older, it's getting quite laborious. It's getting quite annoying, especially because I'm leaving from somewhere where I know where everything is, right? I started again here, and I know where everything is, and I had to get stuff done. I know how to escalate things. I know how to, I know how it works here, right? Whereas you go to somewhere new, you have to figure out how you're logging onto your laptop, where the shared drive, what's in the shared drive, who everybody is. And for me, I just, it's a lot. But that couldn't be the reason that I stayed where I was, because I figured that maybe that's something that I've learned in this contract, that maybe as a contractor, as a contractor, I'm coming to the end of contracting, and maybe I can still keep my consultancy open, but maybe I need to look at things like a bit more solid. Well, I say solid, and I shouldn't say that actually, because not solid, but a bit more long term. So for instance, maybe I should be looking at perm and fixed term, but I think fixed term is more the happy medium for me, because I've got commitment issues with perm roles and the politics that comes with. Whereas I know as a contractor, we don't deal with the politics. We don't have to, because we're just contractors, and we're there for a limited period of time unless our contract gets extended. But I think maybe that's the conversation that I have to have with myself, that maybe if I'm feeling quite anxious about starting all over again, even though I've flipping written the blueprint, maybe I need to start thinking about, maybe Toya, you should do a fixed term contract for 12 months, But again, that's something that maybe I'm going to take away and mull over. But I say this to say, not wanting to start again can't be the reason why you stop your own progression. And it's also about knowing when it's time to go. And one thing my dad always used to say about leaving a job and going on to whatever it is, he says, always leave in peace, because you never know when you're going to need that person again. And in my 20s, I used to go kamikaze. Yeah, I used to watch like EastEnders and Sunset Beach, everyday drama, innit? So then when it was time to leave a workplace, I would be like, dun, 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 dun. Like, I would go to my boss and I say, I need to speak to you. And I would hand her my resignation, and she'd be upset, and I'd just have so much attitude, and I'd be rude. And then I wouldn't, in my 20s, I was the worst. Especially my early 20s, I was the worst. I would never, ever kind of have that integrity. Like towards the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks of where I'm working, if I'm working my notice, I'll come in late, I'll do mad things, yeah? And whilst I think you get a bit of leeway, because even now, you'd still come in late and stuff like that, but I wouldn't even do proper handovers. I really didn't have the work integrity that I do now in my early 20s, but you're allowed to be like that in your 20s, you're allowed. But, growing up and understanding, that my industry, for example, is quite small, so people know who I am within my industry, and it takes one phone call for somebody to say, oh, what is she like? And I know what people say about me, and I know that my work speaks for itself. I know the contracts I've worked on in this industry. I just have to name a couple of them, and do you understand? Like, people sit up. So I understand the need for reputation from that perspective, and maintaining good relationships where possible. But there's sometimes in organizations where your boss just wants to move mad, and she wants to move kamikaze, and she wants to make your life hell. But it's about you and what you do and how you respond, and it's difficult, especially when you've already mentally checked out. But my thing is, I'm going to leave in peace. Whatever that peace is supposed to look like, I'm going to walk in it. And I can only hold myself accountable for myself. I can't be accountable for other people's behavior or my manager's responses, no. But as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, so for instance, literally work my notice, i.e. show up, do the handovers, make sure that I'm empowering whoever takes over from me, or empowering the team to know what I am leaving. giving an open window to my boss of about 2 weeks and say, listen, once I've left, if you need to speak to me 1 or 2 times about anything, just call me on my personal line. And I really mean it. I really mean it. I leave with sincerity. And I think that ultimately has been, an amazing comfort to me in terms of who I am in the workplace. Like, I define who I am. I define how I leave. And I've worked with bosses who were just disgusting. And they will just stop talking to you. As soon as you've resigned, they'll stop talking to you. Everything's via email. Suddenly, they're not inviting you out anymore for midweek drinks, or they're not sitting there having a chit-chat with you, in the breakout area. They're treating you like you're on the outside, you're a traitor. Oh, I remember being accused of being a traitor for leaving, and they tried to make it into a joke. And I said to her, well, you saying that to me makes me feel penalised, and I feel a bit bullied by that comment, because it's already uncomfortable that I'm having to leave and make that decision to go on to other things without you having to kind of say that to me and make me feel like I'm the worst person on earth. Yeah, I said it because you wanted to do public embarrassment. I have to do public response. And always being polite and professional, but not allowing myself to be a carpet for people to walk on. What organisations, especially bosses and human resources, sometimes don't realise, you need a nice handover from the person who's leaving. Whether there's somebody who's taken over from them or not, it's not in a manager's interest to piss off a member of staff that's leaving, because you've got to remember, every staff that leaves with a piece of knowledge or a knowledge base that you don't have. So why would you piss them off? Why would you make their life hell? They're just not going to drop that knowledge. I've worked in places before where people's lives been made hell, and they don't leave a handover. Their handover is whatever they say to you day to day is their handover. You want to get pen to paper? You think they're going to leave you an Excel spreadsheet? No, they're not. But they're going to damn well make sure you pay them for their untaken leave. They're going to damn well make sure you pay them for the full month. So why managers place themselves in a situation whereby they're the losers, I never understand it. And the emotional responses to redundancies needs to change, because it's quite triggering. And to be honest, it's quite violent and aggressive. And I usually find it's with white women, It's mainly white women who, in my experience, and they remind me that they gave me an opportunity. Okay, so because you gave me an opportunity, I should suffer. I can't suffer. Whoever gave you the opportunity to be where you are, I'm sure they're not suffering, or you're not suffering as a result of that. No, I can't. Something that happened, when my boss was burying her head in the sand, is I started to notice that as a response to me leaving, she started doing things to undermine me. So she would ask somebody to come and ask me something, or to come and ask one of my suppliers something, rather than just come to me to ask my supplier. And I remember there was a guy she asked, can you ask so-and-so supplier if they can do this? And my colleague sent me a Teams message and said, Deborah's asked me to do this. I don't know why she's asking me to do it, because you're the one that manages these contracts. And it could have gone one or two ways, but I just thought, you know what, if that's Deborah's response, fair enough. So I said to my colleague, leave it with me. I'll ask the question. I'll reply in an email copying Deborah, and I'll copy you in with the answer. And I think that ultimately shamed my boss into calling me, because she realised, oh shit, I've just tried to ignore Toya, and now she's calling me out by being so professional. Yeah, I'm going to kill you with kindness. I'm not going to reduce myself to your level so that you feel justified in how you feel. I'm not entertaining your emotions. I'm not babysitting your emotional response to somebody leaving. Leaving an organisation's way of life. But managers need to get to a point whereby if your department is a constant revolving door, 9 times out of 10, you're the reason. 9 times out of 10, you are the reason. And lucky for me, I don't have, I'm not a per member of staff, so I don't have the, what do you call it, exit meeting. No, I don't have one of them. Let me know if you want me to talk about exit meetings as well, because I've done a fair few of those. Managed them and kind of been employed to provide an exit meeting interview, so let me know. I also wanted to also touch on something that I touched on Instagram. I feel like it's very difficult creating boundaries in the workplace anyway, but during the course of the Toya Talks podcast, I speak about it quite pervasively throughout the episode about setting boundaries and the importance of setting boundaries. And I think we all know why we need boundaries in the workplace, but I think that remote working provides a new nuance to setting boundaries. These people don't even have boundaries in their marriages. Yeah? So when they come into the workplace, they don't see why you have boundary. Yeah, you heard me. They look at your boundaries as an indignant response, a refusal, a flat out refusal. And it's not. I learnt the power of saying no. If you work with me, I'm one of those people, I don't like to see people struggling. If you need my help, or if I'm working on something, you need some information or whatever, I'll provide it. I will go over and beyond, because there will come a time when I'm going to need help from someone. If I sow that seed somewhere else, I will not know where I need to harvest it. That's how I work. But last week there was this girl, and literally I switched on my computer. I had 151 emails, right? And my department's very busy. You can't really get anyone on the call first time. Like, it takes a couple of tries. So this girl from a completely different department sent a speculative email to my team, but it was relevant to me. So I went back to her and I said, okay, it's relevant to me. What is it that you need? So she goes, I need the financials of so-and-so supplier. I said, no problem. I provided her the financials, and she says, she come back again. She said, Toya, I need the backing data. I says, no problem. Provided her the backing data. And then I provided her an email that was very informative, that would provide her with an understanding of the financials and the backing data, because I just didn't have the time to get on a call with her. She then sent me another email saying, Toya, if you've got a few minutes, if you're not busy, I need to sit down. I don't understand the backing data. I ignored her email. Yeah, you heard me. I ignored her. Casper became my friend, because I felt as though she was taking the piss. Yeah? You're probably thinking, how is she taking the piss? Okay. She then sent me an email on Teams, and she says, a message on Teams, and she says, Toya, have you got a few minutes? I don't understand the backing data. I said to her, I don't. She said, pardon? I said, I don't have a few minutes. I don't have a few minutes today, tomorrow, or the rest of the week. I said, I've been really clear to you about the contents of the financials and the backing data. I provided you a very comprehensive email. And yet you want me to find the time again, after digging all of that information out, to explain it to you. I says, no, I don't have the time to explain it to you. And actually, I kind of already have in the email. So I didn't hear from her again. So one of my colleagues rang me, and he said that, the girl made a complaint about me that I'm not helping her. I said, really? He said, yeah. I says, you was copied in the email, wasn't you? He said, yeah. I said, so in that email, what do you understand from what I sent? He explained it. I said, so why do I need to sit down with this girl? Why is my no not enough? He said, you know what, Toya, you're right. You've explained everything here, so I don't understand anything over and beyond what she wants to understand the backing data. You've given her an explanation of it. So in that way, she should, maybe read it. And I said to him, I need you to communicate something. I said, my no is my no. I'm not going to take the time out again, after going over and beyond, to now explain something to her that she didn't even give me the due respect of actually reading my email. And I shared this on Snapchat, and I shared this on Instagram. And no, it's weird, because I feel as though we have been conditioned to think that no is insubordination. No is not insubordination if communicated professionally. No is a way that we set our boundaries. Yeah? I don't even have enough time to fully empty my bowel. But you think that you are entitled to my time. You do. And it's a white privilege thing. It's white women who think that they can, because their white fragility tells them that if they ask for something, they can get it there and then. And I think it's a problem, because this girl's been on calls with me before. I know she's been on calls with me before. I know who she is. And she has this very entitled attitude. And the way I look at it is this. I'm never ever going to compromise myself in a role. And part of not compromising myself means that I'm not going to sacrifice my time when I've taken the time to give you what you want, give you more than what you want, but you don't even respect me and my job to read my email. No, you're not entitled to time. And I think that we need to get comfortable as black women to understand and communicate to other people that no is not insubordination. No is I'm setting my boundaries. Yeah, if you had read everything and not understood it and had specific questions, that's different. But you think that I should be your teacher. I should teach you how to read information that you've requested. I should educate you on Black Lives Matter. I should educate you on my black experience, my lived experience, my blackness. We should always educate them, but white people don't want to take the time to understand us. And it's a privilege that can no longer coexist in a world whereby we're expected to live harmoniously. To live harmoniously, there needs to be give and take on both sides. That's in life and it's at work. But people are working from home and really believe they're taking their home attitude to work. It's not going to be me. It's a no from me. Sorry, girl. Sorry, Charlie. It's a no. So my colleague communicated it to Charlie. Yeah, communicated it to her. And then her boss emails me. He says, Toya, I don't know what the problem is as to why you can't provide this information. So do you know what I did? I copied in my boss. I said, Mark, in my email of so-and-so date, I have provided the justification and explanation of this backing data that your colleague requested from me on so-and-so date. She then came up with an updated request. I gave it to her. What I do not have the time to do is handhold and spoon feed somebody to help them understand their job. I said, maybe she needs some more training to understand her job, but I do not have the bandwidth to be able to provide that support. That's what I wrote. Do you know what my boss wrote? Thank you, Toya, so much for all the information you have provided. You have indeed gone over and above. Charlie, I would ask you if you could please read the email properly, and if you have specific questions to table to Toya, then do so. But it is not Toya's job to explain something that you have been employed to do. Yeah, that's what my boss wrote. You're fucking damn right. Yeah, her boss came fee fi fo fum. Yeah, white guy, middle class, I know him. He comes with this type of arrogance. I know when he saw me, he was angry. I know. Yeah, I know, because it gingers their soul. Who is this commercial contract consultant lead commercial? Who is this person? I'm going to deal with him. No. I always am professional. But what I'm not prepared to do is sacrifice my time to make your job easier because you can't be bothered to do your job. What kind of sense does that make? But it's things like this that compel me to the reason why I'm leaving. I ain't got time to work with stupid. I don't have time for that. So it was weird because I just kind of felt like for you to go and report me because I won't call you to explain something you've asked for is crazy to me. But she set the tone. And one thing I will never do is be bullied by a manager. I've passed that stage of my life to accept that. I've been really, really bullied in my career before, you know. I've really suffered. I'm not suffering. God said we shall be free. He said, let my people go. I'm free indeed. So that freedom is what I'm exercising now. So never ever think you can come step to me. I'll copy my manager in. Since you want to move like that because you want to show me that you are her boss, come and meet mine. Allow me to introduce you to mine. Yeah. Because one thing my boss will always say is I'm never rude, direct, straight to the point, professional, but I'm never rude. But it's funny how it's expected for us as black women to accept rudeness. But if we were to meet them with that same energy, we're called aggressive, Abby. If we meet them with that same energy, we're difficult to manage. If we meet them with that same energy, they don't know how to work with us. But we have to find a way to accommodate and work with them. Do you know that I need a diploma in working with white people? I need a diploma in it because they're difficult. If they're not going through something, Timmy wouldn't go to sleep last night. They will come and tell you the story of Timmy. Or their husband and wife is cheating. They will come, they've always got a problem. But they never ever think to ask, how are you, Toya? Oh, I've seen everything with Black Lives Matter. How have you processed everything? No, we don't get asked that question. No. You just strip us of our humanity, strip us of any emotion, and deal with us with such contempt. And I'm not having it. I'm not. The industry that I work in at the moment is very white, male dominated. And they let you know that you ain't part of them. Or you will never be part of them. Or us and them. That's how they treat me. And when I started this contract, it was so difficult because I've never done this particular industry before. This is new for me. But I had all the transferable skills, and now I'm flourishing. Literally, I'm flourishing, and I've acquired this new skill. I feel so grateful. But it's because I played dumb. I let them think that I was a nothing. I let them think all their stereotypes. I could tell. You know, sometimes they'll be talking, they will just be speaking louder when they're speaking to me. But everybody else, they'll speak normal, as if I don't understand English. Or sometimes I'll ask a question, and then you can hear them huffing. But hang on a minute, I'm giving you commercial cover here, but I need to ask you questions, you're huffing. Like I should already know. I'm sorry, I've been here for 2 days. You know? So I've had to learn the hard way how I learn. But once I learn something, I know it forever. And here has challenged me, and it's challenged me in the right way. I definitely feel as though the strength of character that I have has meant that I've been able to last this long. But it's always good to know when it's time to go. And I will say, once you've made a decision to leave somewhere, it becomes the best coping mechanism, because now you know. So when I was in perm employment, when I knew I was going to leave, something that really helped me was already writing my resignation. So sometimes the resignation might be 4 or 5 pages, but by the time I actually decide the date I'm going to tell my employer and actually make the decision to leave, it's usually 3 lines. Because there's a therapy in writing how you feel down. It's therapeutic to write your resignation, even if you're not sure whether you want to resign, if you're going to hand it in. It's amazing to be able to just kind of offload yourself. And you and I both know that when you're dealing with the workplace, you have to put your emotions to the side. So once you've made the decision to leave, you strip that resignation of all emotion. It is usually about 3 lines, and it becomes a coping mechanism, because you know that the end is near. You know that you've got a drop dead date that you're going. And I think that's what's made my current contract more bearable and palatable. At the same time, I'm a bit disappointed because I didn't take this contract to not see it through to the end. But here we are, and here I am. And sometimes it be like that, you know. And I've done a good solid couple of months. Looks good on the CV. And now it's time to go, because I choose my mental health. I choose myself, and I choose happiness and a balance of work and life over this. This is not sustainable. And I think sometimes we just have to ask ourselves, what is sustainable? What can you tolerate? You know, are you able to work through things? Is it more about personality clashes rather than needing to leave? What does the next step look like? You know, if you're project managing your career, what are you trying to get to? Where are you trying to get to? And understanding sometimes when you need to get over your own self and just work through stuff. And again, it's just knowing when to leave and knowing how much you can take and tolerate, and not putting yourself in a situation where you're compromising your mental health, because your mental health is probably the most important thing that you have. And once that's gone, everything crumbles around you. So it's important that you hold on to your mental health and you do whatever it takes to maintain your mental health, especially in a pandemic. You know, ordinarily, if you've been following me on Snapchat, you know that what used to happen is on my way to work, I'd snap. On my way home from work, I'd snap, and I'd literally share kind of what's been happening at work and stuff like that. That's kind of what gave birth to the podcast, and I know a lot of people miss that, and obviously we're in a pandemic, we're remote working, and sometimes now and again I do on Snapchat kind of snap while I'm at work and stuff like that. I say this to say something happened last week, and I thought to myself, oh my god, would have been amazing if I was on my way back from work and I was able to snap this, because I was really in the emotion of it. And I say in the emotion of it because I couldn't even believe what was happening at work. So, do you remember we've got an episode 34, season 2, Scramble for Power? And there's another episode that I did in conversation with Anime Chicane called Bully Boss, which is episode 39, season 2. And, you know, I was talking about a guy at work who basically was trying to take over and basically get rid of my boss. And in conversation with Anime was sharing with me some of her experiences in the workplace, especially with Asian women. And to be fair, I've had similar experiences, but I kind of feel with Asian women it's different because Asian people tap dance within the bucket of BAME, and they become BAME when it suits them. When it doesn't suit them again, they don't remember where or BAME. No problem. So last week there was a contractor called Cindy, and obviously all the names that I use on the Toya Talks podcast has been changed to protect the identities of the people I'm talking about. And I say protect the identities. I don't know why. Anyway, so Cindy's a contractor, and Cindy has been there probably a week or two before me. So I guess we're similar in terms of length of service. And one thing I tell you about Cindy, Asian woman, grown, married, kids, whatever, is she used to talk to me like I was a kid. So we would have like meetings and stuff, like team meetings, or if there was a meeting that I had to have with her about something, maybe we've got the same contractor for certain things. So we've got the same contractor, but they do different things, and therefore we look after their different contracts. And she would talk to me like, oh, I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs. I hate that saying, you know. Who fucking sucks eggs? It's weird. But anyway, that you know, Oyibo people, they love their sayings. Their sayings are always to do with food that they don't season. Anyway, Cindy is not Oyibo anyway. She's an Asian woman, as I said before. But she would just talk down to me. And she'll talk to me like, you know, I just graduated. Even if I just graduated, you don't speak to people like that because I'm in a professional environment just like you. But I am so used to working in organisations and being underestimated. I really am. And do you know what? I'm comfortable in it. Because when people are underestimating you, they don't see you coming. And that's when you then excel and soar like a phoenix. And that's exactly what I do. And also as well, I look a lot younger than my actual age. So for them, they make the assumption based on their own stereotype and their own prejudices. Cool, up to you. So Cindy would talk down to me. And one of my colleagues noticed it. And one day she called me Tolu. And she called me Tolu throughout the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, I said, you know, my name's not Tolu, it's Toya, the same name that's at the bottom of your screen. I didn't recognise it. Sounds similar. I said, so does Mindy, but I still call you Cindy. And everybody started laughing at her because she looked stupid. She sent me a message then, a private message, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, the assumption would be that somebody would say that I maybe think that all black people look the same, and I don't think you look like Tolu at all. It's just it's TT. I didn't even respond to that message because it's dumb as fuck. Especially because you can see my name at the bottom of the screen. So you're just willfully calling me what you think I should be called, dickhead. Anyway, still have to work with her as a team. I can be polite, and I am. So there was one day before Christmas, she sent a calendar invite for catch-up tea and coffee. This woman is not my boss. I am not her boss. She's a contractor just like me, a consultant just like me. So she put tea and coffee. So I just accepted it. I thought, let me just see what it is. And plus I had a bit of time, so I was like, why not? So as the day came for the tea and coffee, I logged on via Teams. Was it Skype? One of them anyway. And there was another guy called Blake who's on my team, and it was just me, Blake, and Cindy. And Cindy was just using it as an opportunity. She said she just wants some downtime and wanted to catch up with the team and everything. And I'm just looking at her thinking, you're not our boss here. I don't understand. Why is it just us? Anyway, she was just talking. And one thing with Cindy, she got one takeover spirit. So she's a busybody. And when she's talking, that her diarrhea mouth, she'll just be coming out with shit. I was very quiet on that call because I was still trying to figure out why it was just me and Blake on this call. Anyway, long story short, the call ended or whatever. Maybe a week or two afterwards, Cindy sent a message, asked me if I'm available for a call. She just wanted to quickly check something with me. No problem. So we got on the call and she said, she asked me how I was or whatever. I was like, I'm cool. She's like, oh, Toya, did I tell you that Blake made a complaint about her? I said, why? She goes, he went to our boss, Deborah, and said to Deborah, why is Cindy putting tea and coffee catch up in our diary? Like, we don't have time for it. Like, why is she doing that? She goes, and then Cindy was like, I don't know why, Blake, I was just trying to be nice, I said, yeah, but Cindy, it's not your place to do that. If we're going to have catch-up calls, Deborah should put them in herself. I said, the only reason I attended is I was just curious. It's not that I had anything to add. So, she started, like, bashing Blake. I was just there. Then she started kind of bashing my boss a little bit. I just didn't say anything. I let her talk. Then she said to me, oh, somebody told me that you've worked at Goldman Sachs before. Somebody told me that you've worked at so-and-so before. Is that true? I said, yeah. She goes, wow, I didn't realise you were that seasoned. In my head, I was looking at her thinking, seasoning now that I give you, wouldn't even know what to do with it, you stupid fool. I said, what do you mean you didn't realise I was that seasoned? I said, do you think I was born yesterday? She goes, no, but you know, sometimes you're really, really quiet, so sometimes you're a bit mysterious. Cool. Anyway, she started talking, nice, burying herself. I just let her talk. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to irritate this woman. So she said to me, so we were talking generally, and she was saying to me, oh, what is my grade? So basically, in this organisation, we do have different gradings. So if you're a lead, you're like head of, and you do have signing rights. So head of a certain type of function. I'm trying to explain it, but so I'm head of a certain function within my contract. So if my contract is to do with professional services, I'm the lead professional services. So all the professional services contract are managed under me. So effectively, it kind of works in that way. So I said, I'm a lead. And she goes, oh, what grading is a lead? I said, the lead is G7s. She goes, no, that can't be right. I said, what do you mean it can't be right? It is. She goes, well, I'm only a grade 6. I said, well, you need to take that up with Deborah. She goes, oh, how did you? And I was like, I'm really sorry, Cindy. You do realise me and you, we're not the same. I've been doing this almost 9 years. I says, you talk about Goldman Sachs. I haven't just come from Goldman Sachs. I come from PwC. I come from Inmarsat Global. I come from Capital. I come from the Royal British Legion. I says, I've worked in a lot of places. I says, I also have financial services experience. She goes, oh, it's because you've never said before. I never knew. I was like, well, why do you have to know? I said, how does that add to your job? How does that add to you? I said, after all, we're contractors. The fact they even give us gradings, to be honest, I've never been in a contract where they give us gradings before. But I think it's because of the nature of the project that we're on. But I know I'm a lead. That's why all of the professional services contracts come to me. By the way, I don't actually manage professional services contracts. I'm just using it as an example here. This woman looked like I threw water over her. I literally saw her twitching. And I know that my computer was not malfunctioning. She was twitching. And do you know why she was twitching? Because the way she looked at me, not only did she underestimate me, but I tend to feel like, you know, even though we're in this BAME melting pot, there are Asian people who believe that we are beneath them. So if it looks like we are not beneath them, some of them are uncomfortable by that. Everything is a hierarchy, and I don't understand it. Because for me, I don't have to tell you my accolades. I don't need to tell you who I am. My work introduces me. This woman has been going around lighting little fires everywhere, irritating everybody. Yeah, apparently that's not the first complaint. But she's going around, and what she does is she calls my boss. Everything that drops on the floor, she will call my boss. She's actually becoming a fucking liability. I think this girl is attempting a coup d'etat. Yeah, a coup d'etat, my dear. A takeover. Shall I tell you why? As this woman was talking to me, before she established that I'm a higher grade than her, she said to me that she's been speaking to my boss that she wants a more strategic role. I said, what do you mean strategic role? You have a category that you lead. She said no, that she wants a more, like, if there's an escalation, that the escalations go to her and she deals with it. I just asked her directly. I said, so you want to be Deborah's number 2? She said yes. I said to her, what qualifies you to be Deborah's number 2? And who told you that Deborah needs a number 2? She said, well, her job is already taken, isn't it? Because Deborah's already in that job. So she wants... I said, so basically, you want to be managing all of the leads, commercial contract consultants. She said, yeah. I said, but you can't lead me. I said, how can you lead me? I said, I've got not only more experience than you, but you're not even a lead in your own category. You're a lower grade than me. Oh my God. I swear to God, I tipped her. And I knew what I was doing. I just wanted to wind her up. Because I kind of felt like it's a bit of a liberty that you think you can call me and chat shit just to make yourself feel better. It's a bit of a liberty that you are more angry at the fact that I'm a higher grade than you, even though we're contractors. Hello, we're not perm staff here. But you're still attempting some type of overthrowing. The last person that attempted that was David. And we know what happened to David. Season 2, episode 34, Scramble for Power. If you want to know what happened to David, go there. So it seems like, you know what I think it is? I think there's an inadequacy that sits inside of Cindy. And inadequacy in a sense that she knows that she doesn't have the experience or the capability to manage. So she wants to take it by force. But my question is, who are you managing if we're all leads? We're all leads. We're all senior. So and why? Why do you think that if I had an escalation, I'll come to you? What type of influence do you think you have? Who told you what's in your mind? Listen, at the end of that call, yeah, she was fucking fuming. I know she called Deborah. I know. And I didn't care. Because Deborah knows, number one, Deborah knows how I am. But that call that Cindy would have made to Deborah is, why is Toya a grade 7 and she is a grade 6? It's not a secret. I'm a lead. And when they did the organogram, they put our titles there. When she saw she didn't have lead in her title, she should have known. But I think for me, what I realized is that even more so is that when you are working with people, especially as a black woman, being underestimated becomes almost part and parcel of the job. Your job is not to prove these people wrong, you know. You don't have anything to prove to anybody other than yourself. My work does the talking for me. I'm telling you now. If I go onto a call and I'm talking, everybody's silent. And that to me is because they respect the value I bring. That to me shows that actually I'm the subject matter expert in what I do and I'm afforded that respect, that audience. I don't need to beat my chest and tell people everything I've done in my life. These remote interviews, everybody will be introducing themselves and they will start telling you when they finish secondary school. They'll tell you what their parents do for a living. I ain't got time. Hi, my name is Toya. I work as a lead commercial consultant in so-and-so division. I report into Deborah. And I've been here for so-and-so months. That's it. That's what I say. I don't need to give you a shopping list. I don't need to. Because by the time I finish piecing your work, by the time I've finished with your contract, nobody will tell you that I ain't new to this. But for some reason, that still blows my mind. I find that, especially when working with Asian women, that it doesn't sit well with them to see a black woman excelling past them. And that is a matter for Cindy. It's not a matter for me. She has today called me several times. I'm not picking. No, I'm not picking. Because I'm tired. I've already told you what it is. I know that you had the weekend to digest it. It must have hit you for 6. Deal with it. I got a job to do and I'm a contractor. At the end of my contract, I'm going to fuck off to where I'm supposed to go. I don't need that around me. And even more surprising that contractor would act like that, because a contractor does not have the security of that a perm has, insofar as I think she was even saying to me that the termination rights in her contract, termination of convenience, which means that they don't need to be noticed. They could just get rid of her same day. So why are you committing your time to creating little fires everywhere? Committing yourself to taking over. Who is there to take over, and why? Why do you want to oppress somebody and that you'll take over? Why? So yeah, I wanted to kind of share that with you, and I've created a special little burn folder for Cindy. I've called that Burn Folder 2.0 because Cindy needs her own burn folder because she's a problem. Yeah, she's a fucking problem. But I know I won't even need to utilize that burn folder because I would have left by then. I will not tell Cindy I'm leaving because that will create an opening for her to take over. I'm not doing that. Maybe 2 days before I leave, she might find out. But that's the best way to do it because she will create a problem. What she will do now is start hovering around my contracts, start taking over certain things, and I'm not going to fight with anybody. Do you understand? I will do a handover and work and continue to work in my professionalism with integrity. And somebody like that can undermine your ability to do your job. And I'm not prepared. That one is the devil's right hand. Nah, sorry. Before we move on to some of the dilemmas, I do want to add a few things. I talk about this in the CV masterclass on the toyatalks.com website, and I talk about gaps in your CV. I talk about, how you explain certain absences, especially if it's due to unemployment, and I cover that on the CV masterclass, so I'm not going to, cover it here on the podcast. But I don't want that to be a reason why you don't leave. I think that gaps in CVs are healthy, especially if you can explain them. So telling somebody, I took a career break for a month when you're really unemployed, well, technically it's not a lie, because you are on a break from your career until you can find a new job, Yeah. I think that people think, I have to be somewhere for 2 years before I can move on. I think the time for that has passed, I think organisations and businesses alike are understanding how difficult the workspace is, and that it is normal now to see people who have only been in a role, I say only, but a year is a long time, and move on to next opportunities. I think that, yes, to a certain extent, there are some organisations that want to see a long length of service, but I think we've gone past that now, whereby that is a stipulation as to the reason why somebody won't offer you a job. I never really stay in a role longer than 2 years as a perm, and that's just purely because I didn't want to be boxed into in an industry. I have experience ranging from actual professional services to logistics to defence contracts to managed services contracts, charity sector, public and private sector alike. And whenever I'm asked the question, I always say to them, I didn't want to be boxed into any industry. It was important for me to use my expertise across many different industries and draw on those skills and capabilities in any role I go into. And actually what it's done is given me a great opportunity for me to be exposed to different industries and also to build on my skill set. So it makes me a well-rounded commercial contract manager. And when I say that, I don't know what to say, because it's true. Some people are happy to stay in one job for 10 years because they're too afraid to go and see what's outside. Then some of us that are outside there, maybe we do stint here. You want to penalise us because you think that we can't stay in one place. Well, give me a reason to stay. Give me a reason to stay. Give me a reason to want you. Sorry. Give me a reason to stay. If I've always thought that I would never go into a permanent role, like just apply like that. I think it would be a case of maybe contracting somewhere as a contractor or on a fixed term contract somewhere, and then getting to the end of that contract and they say, actually, you know what, Toya, we love you, we think you're amazing, you add so much value, we want to offer you a perm. And then I think it will happen quite organically. And I say this in my interviews all the time. I always say it because it is the truth. And actually, I'm a career contractor. That's what I am. But it doesn't mean that if the right opportunity came that I wouldn't take it. It just hasn't come. So in pursuit of that right opportunity, I've been acquiring skills far and wide. Yeah, that's why I tell them all. I use my mouth, I tell them that. And they'll just be looking at me. Yes, because I'm doing something that you think you're not capable of doing. Don't penalize me for your own limiting thoughts in terms of what you should be doing to acquire more experience. Working in a job for 10 years is amazing. It shows so many different skill sets, but that doesn't work for me. And I don't look down my nose on anybody who decides, to stay somewhere 15 years, 20 years. That's up to you. But equally, I'm more marketable because it shows that I can adapt. It shows that I can work in different industries. And it also shows that I have the ability to be able to use my transferable skills. Yeah, and that's what I say in interviews too. Go and download the interview masterclass on toyatalks.com, because all my secrets, all the things I talk about in an interview, everything is on the masterclasses. So that's why when some of you send me your dilemmas, I just direct you to the masterclass, because I all my industry secrets of negotiation, interviewing, CVs, everything, it's all there, and I've got all masterclasses for each one of those topics. So go ahead and have a look on toyatalks.com. Now let's move on to the dilemmas. I'm looking forward to this all, because I only skim read them. I haven't read them properly, so let's move on. Hi Toya, I hope you are well. Thank you for your continued service to us Black women. You are truly a blessing, and I pray that as you keep giving, God shall continue to bless you, strengthen and provide for both you and your family. In Jesus' name, amen. Question. I've been made redundant and I have been given my leave date and what my retention pay and settlement pay will be. I'm quite happy with it as the company is giving more than the statutory pay. In my individual consultation meeting, I asked if there was any flexibility on the settlement amount, as I asked for a salary increase at the start of the year and they said they will think about it. Till today, nothing has happened with that, and I am now being made redundant. I reminded my head of finance, the person that decides my payout, of the salary increase he said he was going to think about and why I deserve it. He replied saying, "Thank you for all your hard work. It has not gone unnoticed. However, I would like to remind you that this is an enhanced settlement offer." They said when they send me the settlement agreement, I could make my counter offer and the worst I can get is a no. I want to ask for £5,000 more as that was the salary increase I was expecting. I would like to ask you what your thoughts are. How can I go about asking for this? I know I might sound greedy, but my God can do more for me. I know he can, laugh out loud. I've worked long hours throughout my time there, more than my contractual hours. I've also led a huge project this year and worked on projects that are more managerial level. I hope to hear from you soon. Kind regards. Now, there's a couple of things. So the first thing is, when this lady sent this to me, it was actually back in December. So I hope this is received in good time. I did reply back to her and tell her that I will be discussing it on today's podcast episode. So the first thing is, I have a redundancy masterclass. Yes, it is live on the toyatalks.com website. And in there, I talk about everything redundancy, from negotiating a settlement, from getting a company to offer you over and above the statutory redundancy, to managing your redundancy from the consultation stage, notice periods, and all the things that people do not teach you about redundancies. It is a full, compact masterclass. On top of that masterclass, I give out 2 templates, and it's only for people who have bought the masterclass, and I'll check because everybody gets an order number. And in the masterclass, the templates are appealing a redundancy and asking for a trial period if you're offered an internal role to mitigate your redundancy. But again, it will make more sense if you go ahead and purchase and listen and watch the redundancy masterclass on the toyatalks.com website. So I did direct her there. What I will say is, what really kind of surprises me sometimes is when you're asking for a higher salary, you should have not only put it in an email, but put a follow-up. So I hope to hear from you on so-and-so date, to hold this person accountable. Because what's happened is you left it in their hands. You can't leave a salary increase in the hands of somebody who doesn't want to give it to you. These people don't. They're happy to give you the salary and for you to stay on it forever, amen. So when you're asking for more money, you have to be very intentional about how you ask for this more money. So what's happened is, because you've left it to him, now you're redundant. Now you're trying to backtrack and get him to give you the money. Now, he is very right. When they offer you a redundancy, you could ask for a counter offer. So you'll enter a negotiation. I've got a negotiation masterclass on the toyatalks.com website. If you want negotiation tips, it's on there. But what I will say is, you can always ask for more money, okay, as part of a redundancy. And you've acknowledged that they've given you over and above the statutory redundancy pay. But my thing is, the worst thing he can say is no. So yes, I think you should ask for the extra 5k, but I think you need to take this as a learning lesson. That number one, when you're asking an employer for more money or to be paid more money, you need to be intentional. You need to follow up. You need to apply a bit of professional pressure to get an answer. Now that you're in a redundancy, you're trying to do that retrospectively. And I don't know if they'll give it to you, because I don't know if you've got a justifiable reason for that 5k. Just because he said that he would think about it isn't enough to compel them to agree to give you the extra 5k. And for me, it's about having a compelling argument that binds their hands and forces them to give you the increased money, especially if it's up to 5k, which for some organizations, especially in a pandemic, that can be a lot of money. Now, I think it needs to be acknowledged that, they're going over and beyond the statutory. Some organizations, they will give you the bare minimum. And I think, even in the negotiation masterclass on the toyatalks.com website, I always talk about on there also knowing when to stop. knowing when to say, okay, you know what, I've gotten to the end of this negotiation, because greed will get you a no very quickly as well. And if you do get a no, I think you need to take it as a learning lesson that, number one, when you were going through the consultation period of your redundancy, that could have been an opportunity for you to say to them that as part of your redundancy, you want them to include an extra 5k. However, whatever that money is, they should include an extra 5k, because you did ask for, there could have been ways to kind of do it rather than leave it to the end when they're about to make you an offer. Do you understand? So I think it's just about knowing how to negotiate, when to negotiate, and making sure that you're intentional in your negotiations. Again, I hope you find this quite useful, this advice useful, and I hope that you can also utilize the redundancy masterclass, Managing Your Redundancy, on the toyatalks.com website. So let's move on to the next dilemma. Some of you are doing chapter and verse here on your dilemmas. You need to get straight to the point. I've told you guys, some of your dilemmas are so long. And I'm dyslexic as well. My attention span is not very good. Anyway, let's go. Hi, Toya. I'm pasting a message I initially sent through my Snapchat. Yeah, because I don't accept messages via Snapchat. If you've got, I say don't accept messages. I don't accept work-related dilemmas through Snapchat. You have to email hello@toyatalks.com. And that's where I can manage the dilemmas and things like that. Hey Toya, I hope you're well. I really enjoyed this week's podcast. Watching the industry took me back to the start of my career, and the characters are definitely a true depiction of what happens in the finance environment. I'm almost tempted to watch a few episodes back, as it was interesting to hear and compare different sides of opinion. I found Eric, Kenny and Yasmin's behaviour quite triggering. Eric and Kenny, because they reminded me of my previous manager, who was a bad-tempered bully, and Yasmin because her behaviour represented a lot of the horrible treatment I've had from white women in finance, sometimes even juniors to me. So this young lady is referencing a podcast episode that I did, season 2, episode 40, Industry BBC iPlayer, in conversation with Mr. K, where I did a review on BBC iPlayer's industry. And she continues to write, anyway, I've started my fixed term contract and it's been very busy but enjoyable working from home so far. Like you, I think I'll only consider work from home options going forward, as my workplace anxiety has reduced massively. I'm confronting a lot of challenges with this job, as it's the first time I'm in an all-female team with a female manager. Yikes. Typically, I would reject such jobs because of how I've been bullied by women before. There's a particular senior in the team who I find quite overpowering in character. She's like this naturally with everyone, but I feel as though she gives me a lot of unsolicited direction when my manager is away. And this morning has asked me to set up a team meeting training session for a particular program. It's useful to have this for myself, but I didn't appreciate her telling me to set one up for the team. As my manager was away, she was rightly or wrongly taken charge in team meetings, and naturally I raised a question yesterday to which she directed me to the person managing the program to get the information for a client. I thought, fair enough, she doesn't have to show me how to run the report, nor is she as warm as the other senior managers. As the other seniors. This morning, she instant messaged me on Teams asking which client the report was for. I told her the client name, then asked, why do you ask? Her response was, just so I have an idea. Since I'm the only mid-level in a team of all seniors, how do I get her to back off? If I don't do so early on, it won't end well. I have observed that my manager also almost steps sideways for her. I suspect this could be because she is good at her job, or very well overqualified. Sis, am I overreacting? So before I get to the next paragraph, what I am going to say is, that sounds more like a you problem, if you want me to be honest. And I'm going to say why. Let me tell you something. This girl who's a senior is acting as if she's a senior. And it's a challenge now for you to step up to the plate. Because if you feel that she is maybe overstepping or telling you what to do, my question is because she feels that you are allowing her to. She's basically trying to show you who's the boss, and you're allowing her to do it. And I think that you need to think about maybe where you see yourself in that organization. Do you want to be a senior? Because sometimes you don't wait. Not sometimes. For me, it's never. I don't wait for the role to come. I assume it. And that's what this girl is doing. She's assuming her senior role and maybe even a management role. And she's attempting to manage you because you're not acting like a senior. You're acting like you're mid-level. And you need to be forthright in what you're doing. Still showing her that professional respect. But equally, you need to now, I think, less focus on her, but more focus on yourself, your job, and where you see yourself. Just because you're mid-level doesn't mean you have to act that way. I'm telling you, most of the roles, the senior roles I've been in, it hasn't necessarily been because I applied for them from the jump. It's as I was in maybe a mid-level role, I assumed a certain role and everybody thought I was senior. So then when it came to, say, a review or a request from me for a title change, it was very easy to obtain. 9 times out of 10, it was easy to obtain because I'd already assumed the role that I wanted. I wasn't acting like a mid-level. I don't know how to do that. And this young lady who's a senior is recognized as a senior by your manager, not because she's overqualified, it's because she's fucking damn good at her job. Because if she's overqualified, then they will make her even more senior, isn't it? So I think that you need to not focus on her and you need to focus on yourself. And I know that might even sound harsh, but it's very easy to kind of demonize somebody who's in a senior role when, in fact, maybe underlying there's a little bit of jealousy on your side. Have you ever explored the possibility that that could exist? And that's not a bad thing if you use it to motivate you to see yourself in more of a senior role than the role you're in. It's a mindset change. Listen, I'm going to tell you the first thing is I don't like people coming to tell me what to do. I don't like it. I really don't like it. I've never liked it. But I know that I've had to go through that passage. I've had to pay my dues. But there gets to a point where you realize that if you're waiting for someone to give you a role or give you that seniority, sometimes you have to assume it and take it. And you assume it by behaving in that manner, behaving as a senior, using your initiative, being that safe pair of hands, that trusted pair of hands that your boss can go to and say, I'm going to give that to you. And that to me has always been my motivation. Whenever I go somewhere, I need to do the quick wins, become a safe pair of hands. I am the subject matter expert, become the subject matter expert in that organization, because obviously every organization is different, and acquire the skills to be senior and to be seen as senior. And it is a skill to be able to navigate like that. And I think that it's a skill that you need to develop. So let's continue on. Since sending you the initial message, there has been developments. Before my manager went away this week, she asked the other 2 team seniors to help with any of my questions. We had a new client request come in midweek and she allocated a task to me and scheduled in some calls to help me complete the tasks. The new tasks had a closure deadline of a couple of days where my original tasks were due for the next week. I dropped my task and completed the new one. When I finally got round to starting my task on Friday afternoon, I sent her an email with 3 questions about how or where to locate items. She responded by saying, I'm CCing manager so you can discuss together. Bear in mind, she has previously emailed me directly to ask me to deliver a task for her without CCing my manager. I later came to find out my manager doesn't think we should waste time on this task, has taken the liberty to delegate without wanting to help or assist in other areas. So at the point in which this senior gave you that role and she didn't CC your manager, when you replied, why didn't you CC your manager? This is what I'm saying about sometimes, you know what? You have to put people in their place by meeting them where they are and mirroring their behavior. So you already know what she didn't do. So what did you do to almost level the playing field? You should have copied her back saying, thank you so much for your response, and put your manager there. Thank you so much for your response. Hopefully, said manager will be able to confirm that this is da-da-da. There's a way you can do things. And I have learned from white people how to navigate the world of work as well. White people have taught me a lot. That's why I tell you to do your due diligence. White people have taught me a lot because they underestimate me already. So I have enough time to sit there and watch them, how they navigate. That is why I am fucking damn good at my job. And I'm good at my job wherever I work. Wherever I work, I'm bloody good. Because I know also part and parcel of being good at your job is understanding how to navigate different spaces. This type of senior, at the end of the day, listen, I'm going to tell you now, if you're emailing me on a Friday afternoon, you're going to get a Friday afternoon response. That's what I'm saying. Because Friday afternoon, we all know Friday afternoon, no one's doing no work. Come on. So I have to take this responsibility and give it to you. You sent it. You've already set the tone of this conversation. And the reason why this senior responded in that way is because you sent it to her on a Friday. Yeah, it is. So you continue to say in the dilemma, don't get me wrong, someone had to do the task in order for another to check it. I'm happy to help, and the other senior year was extremely busy. The other senior here was extremely busy. I think that is triggering me is her tone or manner and willingness to step in as manager when delegating, but stepping back when it comes to me asking her for help. Although she explicitly has said, just message me for help in team meetings. I've noticed myself becoming slightly discouraged to work overtime since my manager has been away, and I feel this could be why. Well, again, it kind of ties into what I said earlier, and I hadn't read the rest of this when I said it. This is about you. I think what you're finding triggering is that she is a senior and she is acting like a senior and she's reminding you that you're a junior. But you need to tell yourself what you are. Do you want to be a senior? You need to start acting like it, darling. Because I'm telling you right now, if we were working in the same place, I'm a senior. And one thing with me is I make sure any mid-level or anyone junior to me, I take them on that road. Because I take a joy out of seeing seniors progress, juniors progress, or mid-levels progress. I love that. It's kind of what I do for me that reaffirms to me the type of manager I am. But not everybody is like that. But if I asked you to do something, I expect you to do it. That's a fact. Because if I'm a senior and I have to report into my manager about a task, then who's going to do that task, baby? It's going to be you. Unless you step up and make me start seeing you as also a senior, then there's a limit to how much I will come to you and ask you to be doing. Of course, this woman's going to ask you to start doing diary and stuff because that's how she sees you. And you're acting in that way because you're allowing her seniority to discourage you from where your path is supposed to be. And your focus shouldn't be on her. Your focus should be on yourself. She's a byproduct. You need to learn how to navigate her. And that's going to require you to do some due diligence and take a step back. Don't allow your ego to discourage you from working overtime. Because there are some roles where you have to work overtime. It's just the way it goes. But you can't be discouraged because of the way of her manner. For me, I feel as though it's your ego that's not allowing you to look over and beyond the way she's behaving. And there comes a time where we have to put our egos aside and we have to be a bit strategic about our careers. So I think this is more about you, darling. I really do, than her. I think once you change your mindset and you're a bit more strategic about how you navigate, she will be somebody that you'll take over. You will even be her equal if you allow yourself to get to that level. I mean, the conversations you should be having with your manager is, what do I need to do to be a senior? Yeah. Because what you're basically saying is you don't really want her telling you what to do. But by virtue of the fact that she's senior, that's part of her job. And your manager not being there, don't allow your manager to not be there to tell on you. Because then it will just look to your manager that the only time you do work is when she's around. And you don't want that narrative. So let's move on to the next dilemma.
Hi Toya, I hope you're well and enjoying the festive season as much as possible. I purchased your salary negotiation masterclass a few months ago and rewatched it this weekend as I was going to have an annual salary review process in January, my first ever at the company I work for. As I was watching, I had an idea which I would appreciate your thoughts on. I work in a team of two and I'm the junior person. I should have really factored this into my negotiation salary. However, I did obtain a 10k increase from what they were originally offering me. Typically in the sector I work in, the teams are small, but usually at the minimum there are 3 team members, the boss, the mid-manager and the junior person. As there are only 2 people in the team, the workload is relentless and I feel that my pay does not reflect the stress levels, the extra hours and output. I have received my end of year review and the rating of outstanding. I would like to argue that my pay should reflect the midpoint between the highest point of someone in the role, 40k, and the lowest salary point of the mid-manager, 60k. So this would be about 50k. This would be too ambitious to even the current climate, for even the current climate. So another thought I had was that I would put forward the proposal that this would be met over 2 years, so 45k salary next year and the following 50k. Kind regards. So firstly, I want to say thank you for purchasing the negotiation masterclass on the toyatalks.com website. I want to just say a couple of things. If you watch the masterclass, I actually give you the technique of how to start a negotiation. I tell you to go and look what the market is paying for your role. And I get the impression that your industry is quite niche if you're telling me that there's usually a minimum of about 3 people. If you actually follow the strategy I give you, you could negotiate up to 50k without having to kind of, negotiate that you want a midpoint between, I just think that that's quite a convoluted way to negotiate. I think you should go in at 50, or at least go in at even 55, knowing what your minimum is. And I discuss this a lot on the negotiation masterclass, and I actually give you my industry secrets of how I negotiate and have negotiated every single contract that I've ever had. I think you use the word argue, and I actually accidentally used it as I was kind of responding, and you need to remove the combative language in talking about money. You would not have to argue anything. Replace the word argue with negotiate, because then your mindset changes to understand and appreciate what negotiation is. It's providing, as I share on the Toya Talks Masterclass, a win-win for both parties. Both parties must feel like they have gained something. When you say argue, it's combative. It seems like it's my way or the highway. And I think we need to change our language to enable us to change our mindsets when we are approaching discussions about money. So that's what I would also say. And I think that rather than have a convoluted way of negotiating, just keep it clean and straightforward. Follow the learning outcomes in the Toya Talks Masterclass and use it to your advantage. You can't just negotiate and say, I want to be at the mid-level between my senior manager, and don't get into all of that. I think if you know what you're worth and you know how much input you put in and you know how much hours you sacrifice to be the best that you can be in your employment, that is your leverage. And I think we need to come out of this mindset where we think that we have to compromise before we've had the negotiation. Why are you compromising with yourself? Why are you talking about the mid-level between Why don't you just use the teachings of the Toya Talks Masterclass as an opener, and then once you hear a response from them, then you know how to negotiate and what is on the table of compromise. Right now you don't know, and I don't want you to talk yourself out of a negotiation that you could possibly get 50k without having to do all of this. I think you need to watch the Toya Talks Masterclass on the negotiating your salary again, and you need to do the work, because as part of the masterclass there is things that you have to do that pertains to your industry. You need to go out there and do that work, and it requires you literally to go and Google. It does. And I've made negotiating your salary really easy without you having to talk about, a 2-year period. You don't know where you'll be in 2 years. Why should you wait for 2 years for something you believe that you are deserving of? Why is it that we deliberately, as Black women, pit ourselves off against us? We pit ourselves off against ourselves. We have a self-limiting attitude where we think that what we deserve should be compromised. And that's not the case. What you deserve, it should be what you want, and therefore what you're able to negotiate. So that would be my advice. I hope you find this helpful, and I would love to hear how that negotiation went and how you have utilised the advice I've given you in relation to your dilemma. Hi Toya, Happy New Year to you. I have a short dilemma and I'd appreciate you to answer via the podcast or even an email reply, however you see fit. I work in a school, and as you would have heard from the government's announcement, they have now closed. My manager has told the team, who now have to work remotely, that she expects us to check in with her in the morning and end of the day to inform her we are now working or ending work, which I think is tedious, but I can even allow room for this. But she wants us to also provide her with daily updates on the tasks that we are doing. My issue is that I think this is a subtle form of micromanagement. There's nothing subtle about it, babe. We all have individual roles as support staff in the school, and my manager is aware of the main projects we work on already. She feels things will be quiet, so wants to monitor our workload to ensure we are fulfilling our contractual hours. As you have discussed managing your manager, I feel inclined to inform her I can provide weekly updates as opposed to daily, but would like your assistance in framing this, or your opinion on if you think the issue is in my head. For context, my manager is one of those that likes bums on seats to watch us, and has even gone as far as to say she will be coming into the office during lockdown, so anyone that feels more comfortable doing so can join her. She's mad. Which again, I think is her way of subtly reminding us that she doesn't want us working from home. That's exactly it. I look forward to your response, and I hope you and Kay are doing well and stay blessed. May I kindly ask that you uphold my anonymity by not disclosing my name when discussing the dilemma on the podcast. So I went back to her and I asked her, is she a full-time, part-time contractor, and how long she's been in the organisation, and she came back to me. So firstly, I want to reassure everybody that anybody who sends me a dilemma, I always maintain anonymity. That just goes without saying. It's just respect. And it goes both ways in terms of respect and how people, send dilemmas and things like that. I will always, number one, you show me respect, I will show you respect. People have sent me dilemmas before and just said, I need to ask you something. I just delete it. I don't have time. If you don't know how to open an email with common courtesy like, hi, I ain't responding to you. And yes, just be rest assured that your anonymity is always protected. Even people who write their workplaces' names down on emails, I never, mention it, because that's not what this podcast is about. In any case, it's not in your head. That's the first thing. The second thing is your boss is mad. The third thing is she's very mad. And the fourth thing is she's madder than mad. That is it. What I will say is I think you do need to address it. You've confirmed to me you're a full-time employee. You've been there for just shy of a year, or just over a year. And I think micromanagers are the type of managers that feel that the only way they can manage is to micromanage. So remote working is their worst nightmare. Do you understand? You see this checking in at the beginning of the day, end of day. That's some elementary type bullshit. It's very unprofessional, and it causes anxiety. So I think that you should write the following email to her as follows. So let's call her Jane. Hi Jane. Given the current climate of the pandemic, I have been very anxious in terms of how to live my day-to-day life, and the pressures of working remotely has also taken its toll. However, I'm happy to do so if it means saving lives, and indeed saving my own life. I do find it very stressful that you require me to check in the morning and at the end of the day, and then each and every day provide an update on what work I've been doing throughout the day. It does feel like I am being micromanaged, and although this is something that you've expressed to the entire team, I think it's important for you to understand. I think it's also important to communicate that whilst I understand that you would rather us be in the office, the reality is a global pandemic is preventing this. Therefore, in order to maintain my mental health and to ease my anxiety, I will be providing you with weekly updates. I don't mind checking in during the day. However, the first thing in the day and the last thing in the day does seem a little excessive, given that I have always done my work and utilised the time that I am at work to do my work and complete all tasks. Moving forward, I would like an opportunity to work collaboratively with you that doesn't feel as though I am being watched. I'm happy to discuss this further, but please bear in mind that all of us are under the same pressures, And while you have previously expressed to us that you will be returning to the office and anybody can join you, it is not safe to do so. And any encouragement to do so will contravene the mandate from the government. Full stop. That's all you need to send. Depending on her response, I would copy in HR. You know what it is? With this type of person, if you do not do what they say, she will make your life hell. And you need to let her know, without saying it, that you're not prepared for her to micromanage you as an adult professional just because she doesn't like the conditions that you're working in that have nothing to do with you. And I think sometimes you have to be comfortable with calling things out subtly. And I think, the letter that I've kind of dictated does that without basically calling her a moronic micromanager, because that's what she's asking you to do is quite moronic. I can't work like that. I can't be micromanaged, and any hint of it and I'm out the door, because micromanaging is very detrimental to employees from a self-esteem perspective and also from a mental health perspective. Imagine somebody constantly watching. You might as well let her in your house so she can stand behind you. And what kind of bullshit is that? So I want you to know it's not in your head. Let me know the response to your letter that you send. I'm quite happy to kind of not manage that, but kind of support you with that. But I want you to also be confident in yourself and that this is something that unfortunately requires you to set some boundaries, and whether she likes it or not, you're remote working and she has to deal with it. And I think maybe you might have to take her on that journey of dealing with it. So we're moving on to the final dilemma of the episode. Hi Toya, I hope you're enjoying the festive period. I have another topic for the wrap-up podcast, if I may. Setting boundaries with men, how it's done without scaring them away. In this millennial time of dating, this is challenging. You mentioned on Snapchat that you are against women telling their significant other how many previous partners they've had. Why and how should you respond if asked? This is an amazing question, but I'm not actually going to answer it here. Nope, because I have a whole podcast talking about relationships and balancing relationships and career and stuff like that. And I think that's more of an adequate episode in which to address this question. So forgive me, but I'm not going to answer it yet, but I will answer it in full sometime, I think maybe early February, if not the end of January, in one of our Tuesday episodes of the Toya Talks podcast. And that is the end of our dilemmas for this episode of the Toya Talks podcast. Before I draw this episode to a close, I just want to remind you guys that, when you're leaving an organisation, sometimes you develop templates because they don't have the templates. Sometimes, you expand on templates that organisations already have and things like that. One of the greatest things that I was told very early on in my career is to carry my templates. Because when you go into other organisations, sometimes you don't have the time to create them. Sometimes you've created them for one organisation, you think, shit, I could have done with that template. All I would say is de-logo it, so take away the logo and take your templates with you. Now, some organisations, they're boxing clever these days and they're not allowing you to use USBs to transfer the files. So sometimes I just print mine off. Print off all your templates, and it's easier than to recreate because you've already got the template. And I would say that I've done that pretty much within the last 7 years of my career. I've made sure that I have all my templates, and what's happened is I've got a huge folder of templates. So whenever I'm going into organisations, and most of the organisations I go into have never had a commercial contract manager, has never had contract management, and therefore I'm introducing it into their organisation. So you can imagine that my templates are imperative because I don't always have the time to sit there and create them. So that's just like a top tip when you're leaving an organisation. As much as possible, please try to take your templates, de-logo them as well, especially if you've decided that you want to email them across to yourself. It's just better that way because you don't want them to start saying, oh, you're a security risk and you're stealing our stuff and intellectual property and the rest of it. So just protect yourself is what I'm trying to say. Also as well, I really want to quickly say that the CV Masterclass and the Redundancy Masterclass come with free templates for certain things that are mentioned within the masterclasses. And my assistant she sends them out at the request of the person who's purchased the masterclasses. And I've had a few people email in to say they haven't received the templates, and I've checked and my assistant has sent them. Please check your junk box, junk mail, check your junk mail, especially if you're looking for jobs as well. You should be checking your junk mail anyway. I have emails that go into my junk mail, and sometimes I never even see them until I go in there. So I make a point twice a week to look into my junk emails, and I find like a load of emails, especially if people are looking for jobs. You know, you don't want to miss out on opportunities, so you really need to be diligent in terms of your mailbox. And I would say for the templates that I know my assistant has sent out to people, can you please check in your junk mail before you email in with your huffy puffy emails? I haven't received this, and please don't email me in caps. It's very rude. It's like you're shouting. Don't shout on me. Thank you. So I'm going to draw this episode to a close, and I'm going to remind you guys that if you want to step up your work opportunities, if you want to step up in terms of exploring new avenues in terms of your career, maybe you're going and having career changes and you're thinking about having career changes, but you're thinking, shit, what should I do with my CV? Then you know I've got the CV masterclass on the toyatalks.com website. If you're looking at negotiating your salary, maybe you've got a job offer, maybe you're already in a job and you're thinking, how am I going to go about negotiating? I share all my negotiation tips and tricks, all my industry secrets, everything I use even as of today to negotiate a salary, and that's available on the toyatalks.com website. And newly added to the masterclass family is the redundancy masterclass. I'm really, really proud of it. It's been a labour of love because I really wanted to make sure that I got all the information in there for you guys. And if you want to purchase the redundancy masterclass, again, it's available on the toyatalks.com website. And the mother and daughter masterclass is also available on there as well. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. Or maybe you want to gift it to somebody. It's available on the website for you to download and watch. And there is no expiration date. Once you bought it, it's yours, and you can watch it as many times as you like. I also want to take this opportunity to ask you guys to follow me on social media if you haven't already. I know I need to do better in terms of the Toya Talks podcast, so Instagram page, but I am focusing on it a bit more this year. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Toya_W. Snapchat is Toya Washington, all one word. And of course, Clubhouse is Toya Washington, all one word. If you know that there's somebody out there that can benefit from the Toya Talks podcast, please ensure that you forward on the podcast to them. If there's a particular episode that you think they can benefit from, I really would appreciate it. And I'm sure they would too, if you would guide them to the Toya Talks platform, because it is really changing the lives of Black women as we navigate the world of work. And that is my sole purpose with the Toya Talks platform. If you want to send in your work-related dilemmas, then email me hello@toyatalks.com, and make sure you put in the subject box that it's a dilemma. And obviously, as I've previously mentioned, your anonymity will be protected. If you were listening to the Toya Talks podcast on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. I read all of your feedback. I look at all of the ratings, and I really do appreciate it. Whatever platform that you're listening to the Toya Talks podcast on, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're back. 2021 is going to be a massive year for all of us. Your career belongs to you. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy working in a pandemic and trying to kind of put your best foot forward and trying to navigate in a climate that is unfamiliar, but it doesn't mean that success is not achievable for us. We're navigating the world of work remotely, and if you're able to set the boundaries, deal with your career as if it's a project, and more importantly, be focused on the success that you're trying to achieve this year, it can happen. I believe in you. I believe in each and every one of you. The Toya Talks platform has been created to guide you, support you, and assist you as you navigate the world of work through the podcast, through the website, and of course through the masterclasses. Welcome to 2021, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with all of you. Make sure you follow me on social media, email me your dilemmas, and I will see you on next Tuesday's episode of the Toya Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.